Hello and welcome to Green Pass Gaming Sunday podcast. I am your host Flap, and welcome to Sunday's show. Very excited for today's show. We've got a full packed GPG crew in with us with a guest, first time guest on the show. Really looking forward to getting our teeth into some of these fantastic topics. If you're in the UK, it's a bank holiday Monday tomorrow as well, so we don't have work. Most of us don't have work in the morning, so that always puts an extra spring in your step on a bank holiday weekend. So I'm just going to quickly run through the topics so you can sort of know what to expect out of today's show. And today we are going to tackle whether Halo and Forza Horizon 5 were actually going to launch in the same month, whether that was the actual plan all along, and we'll be covering some of the reasons and thoughts behind that, particularly what came out of GamesCom this week. And talking of GamesCom, we will be just having a brief run over the GamesCom in general and some of our high and low lights of the week's goodness. And to round off the show, could be a bit of a decisive one or divisive one. This is hating on Call of Duty justified? This week obviously saw the launch of the Call of Duty Vanguard's Alpha, a game type called Champion Hill. Both Pucks and I had a bit of a delve in there. We are kind of COD players. There's lots of hate going down on Call of Duty. Some of it justified, some of it perhaps not so much, but we're going to be delving into that and having a look. But before we get onto any of that goodness, let's run through tonight's GPG crew, and I'm going to go in order yet again. And next to my name, under my name on the screen, we've got Scott SX2. How the devil are you, my friend? What have you been up to this week?
Evening Flap and even everybody else. I'm feeling good. As you said, in the UK, with it being a Sunday before bank holiday, it's got like a little bit of a different vibe, doesn't it? We don't have to worry about going to bed early. We don't have to worry about getting up from work. We're really looking forward to the show. This week I've been checking out Psychonauts. Today I've been playing Halo Wars 2 of all things. And I've actually been playing a little bit of xCloud. I actually picked myself up a little Reza Kishi this week. So I've been playing. I actually tried Psychonauts on that. I played some Slay the Spire, which is kind of one of my favorite sort of games to play on xCloud at the moment. So a nice variety this week, I think.
How are you finding the Kishi? Is it because obviously it plugs in straight into your phone without having to use Bluetooth and stuff?
Yeah.
Do you find the lag and stuff? Is it usable as a device like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've played a fair bit of xCloud anyway. I use the touch controls for games like Say the Spire, which for those who don't know, it's a card battler role like type game, so you don't have to worry about import or anything like that. I've also played just using it with the controller with like a little clip, which is kind of via Bluetooth, which does introduce a little bit of latency. So having it direct via USB-C is great. And one of the problems I had with the clip actually was the weight distribution, because it's very top heavy with the phone being at the top of the clip and being heavier than the controller. So having it sort of in more of a Switch form factor is quite nice. And also I will just say it's a million times more comfortable to hold than a Nintendo Switch as well, because it's actually got something to hold on to. It's got proper triggers. It's a little bit more Steam Deck-like, if that makes sense, where it's not just a flat slate. It's actually got something for you to put your hands on. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed with it so far, actually.
You tempted me, to be honest, because I did have my eye on that early on, and a little bit like you, I am a little bit averse to the particular form factor, particularly around the Switch. But so that put me off a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. It's just nice being able to sort of game on the Xbox mobile. Did you ever play on 4 or 5G at all, or is it always Wi-Fi?
It's always Wi-Fi. I've never tried it out and about, to be perfectly honest. I think that would probably be too much latency for my like, and even the Wi-Fi sometimes can be a little fuzzy. I actually installed a new router today to improve the 5 gigahertz connection in my house as well, because being on BT you can't split the Wi-Fi bands or the SSID for the two bands, which meant sometimes I was on 2.4 and unfortunately you couldn't pick and choose. So hopefully that'll make it even better going forward. But yeah, really impressed, Flap. And if it's something that you use, then I'd personally recommend it.
Oh, that's interesting you say that, because I've got a BT wireless router, and I had the home hub, I think, but I was fortunate to get myself a business hub, and you can actually split out the SSID on 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, so you can actually manually connect to one or the other without it bouncing between the two. But interesting. Puxley, welcome to the show, my friend. Looking after tonight's chat. How the devil are you? What have you been up to?
Yes, good evening. Good evening, chat. I'm doing very well, thanks. Gaming-wise, it's mostly been Psychonauts 2 for me this week, if not completely. Really, I've not really played the first one. I played about 2 hours worth of it when it first came out to Game Pass. I was quite new to the franchise. I didn't have an original Xbox. Then kind of put it down by the wayside because there was other new releases at the time. And then, looking forward to this one for a while. It's definitely my kind of game. And having played it, it's definitely one of my favourite games I've played this year, if not my one favourite game I've played this year. And I can definitely see why all the reviews are saying that this is definitely a game of the year contender. And I suppose for anyone in chat watching this thinking, I don't know whether it's my kind of thing, like you just have to give it a go because it's so wild and crazy and weird, but in such a great way. Like there's no negatives about it at all. You just have to kind of accept it and take it for what it is. But it's such a great game. So really enjoying that. And actually, I think as you said during the opening, actually, we both played the Call of Duty Vanguard Champions Hill Alpha demo. I was on PS4, you was on PS5, and we had a go at that. We won a game, which was quite good. Quite liking the new game mode. Gameplay was pretty good. Vanguard as a game seems pretty nice. It kind of, it's basically modern warfare controls put into a World War II setting, isn't it? So that was quite fun. I'm quite looking forward, from having played the alpha, to see what kind of comes in full light when the full game comes out. So it's been good. I've enjoyed those so far. That's what I've been up to.
No, that's pretty cool. Yeah, like I say, we dove into that yesterday, and like I say, perhaps topic 3 on tonight's show might light people up when it comes to Call of Duty, but we'll find out later. Judzilla, first time for the show, my friend. You, myself, Luke were on Indies showcase when we were looking at the opening night live Gamescom show. So welcome to the show, my friend. It's been too long to have you on. We should have done this a long time ago, but here you are today, thankfully, and finally. Welcome to the show, and what have you been up to, my friend?
Oh, thanks very much. Well, first, obviously, thanks very much for the invite, and awesome to be on with you guys. Been a big fan for quite a while. So looking forward to tonight's chat. We've got some spicy topics. This week, I've been working through, again, still probably the Game Pass backlog. I've been playing some of the I'm playing through the co-op with my brother, so played that with him. Tried out the new Watch Dogs Legion Zombies mode, which is extremely difficult if you haven't played it. I think it's one of those games you have to put a little bit of time into to really get the best out of it. I've got some complaints, but I won't go into that. It's not a therapy session. And then I've been playing Last Stop as well, working through some of the indies that came out recently on Game Pass, like Omno and Last Stop. And Formula 1 2021, I'm still trying to finish the whole game. So that's been good fun. And Psychonauts I played yesterday. We spoke a little bit about that, and we may come on it later. So I'll leave my impressions, but overall great. Apart from the trauma, because I'm at the dentist next Friday.
Now, you know what? It's interesting you say that. I was showing my brother earlier, and I said, this is such a fantastic and creative game. And I showed him the opening 11. I said, it's all fine as long as you're not scared of the dentist.
Yeah, exactly. So I've had a couple of sleepless nights after playing it, but it's awesome. I'm really enjoying it so far, mate.
Fantastic. Yeah, we'll have perhaps a quick chat, and we'll get the chat involved on our quick discussion around Psychonauts. But before we do, Luke, welcome to the show, my friend. How's things with you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Yeah, I've been playing a lot this week, actually, for a change. First week in quite a while. I've had a bit more spare time. So yes, Psychonauts again, which is brilliant. Unsurprisingly. What else have I been playing? I've continuing Cyberpunk on PC. Still enjoying that, although, as I say, that differs from hour to hour. So we'll see. So we'll see by the end of the game. But I'm kind of just taking my time with it, so I'm not rushing through the main quest stuff. I'm doing a lot of side stuff and just really kind of enjoying just living in that world a bit. It's really quite cool. It's a bit superficial, but it's definitely very aesthetically cool. I've also been playing, continuing to play the Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, which is predictably very good, specifically the Iki Island stuff. And then, oddly for me, I saw that the Riders Republic beta was available, and I gave that a shot because I was like, why not? It's actually quite good.
Oh, actually, can I ask you there, Luke? Because I watched some gameplay of that, and I didn't think it looked particularly good. I really like the concept. I'm a big fan of the Trials games, and I know it's different than Trials, but kind of incorporates a little bit of that. But one thing I noticed from the video footage that I watched is, I know it's not meant to be realistic, but they were just bouncing off each other, bouncing off walls, and they were just continuing down. It didn't seem like there was seem like it controlled very good. I don't know, that's hard to judge based off video footage, but it just something looked off about how it seemed to control and how the character reacted to like other players in the environment and things like that.
Yeah, well, other players, it's from what I've played so far, probably played about 2 hours or so. You don't actually interact with other players, so you don't. They're all ghosts in nature, effectively. I mean, you can do live matchmaking with them. There are specific events on the map that come along every 15 minutes where people can join in. The barrier stuff is true. It's a bit arcadey, not too much, but it's not going for like ultra realism or anything like that. But I do think it controls really well. Okay. I think the bike is probably the best controlling thing, and then maybe like snowboard after that. But it's like there's Skill Up did a really good preview of it, and I think I totally agree with what he said, which was that, I mean, I probably won't buy this, at least not now, but if I were to, it's kind of one of those games that's really nice to just leave on your hard drive, and then if you've got a spare 30 minutes, you can jump into it, because it has that kind of jump in, jump out feeling to it. And the world is huge, like it's absolutely massive. And it's quite a good looking game, and I don't know, it's just quite fun. It's kind of a meld of, all the kind of classic extreme sports games you can think of, but just on one map, and you can do all of them at the same time, effectively. So I was really surprised because obviously it's Ubisoft, and it's a service game, both of which are things that I hate generally. So, but I could definitely see myself playing more of it. Again, I wouldn't buy it, but if it ever went free to play or really cheap, I'd probably pick it up.
Oh, right. That's interesting. Like you say, that's two things that don't normally tick those boxes for you, and here we are discussing them.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm
cool.
going to have to give that a go. I'm going to have to give that a go myself.
Yeah,
because I've heard some other pretty good reviews as well. Yeah, exactly. So excellent. Well, that's cool. Well, thank you very much, panel. That is our panel and guest for tonight's show. Chat, thank you very much for being. We've got 14 in the chat so far. We've got some good topics coming up. But I will let's just quickly talk about the elephant in the room, and that's on the screen. And I do apologise for the quality of the video. It seems to be coming out quite poorly on YouTube, so I do apologise for that. But yes, Psychonauts 2, the absolute juggernaut that is Psychonauts 2. I mean, I knew it was getting good reviews and it was highly regarded, but like Puxley, I regrettably haven't played the first one, although I've still got that yet to look forward to, and I'm absolutely having a blast with this game. Love it so much. Chat, let us know how you're getting on with Psychonauts and how far you're in, because I was saying in the green room, I put in about an 8-hour stint non-stop yesterday. Probably did another 3 to 4 hours today as well, so I'm a fair way in. Having an absolute blast. Scott, what have you made of it so far?
Yeah,
Did you play the first one?
I didn't play the first one, not all of it.
Oh.
Sorry, yeah, I didn't complete it. I do vaguely remember playing it. What was it, 16 years ago now? It's quite a long stint between the first and the second game in the series. I do vaguely remember playing it, but I don't have any particular memories of it. How old was I? 16 years ago. I was still a teenager back then. So going into Psychonauts 2, I was still pretty excited because, well, first of all, I like platforming games, and everything that I've seen of this up to releases look, exceptionally good. And then the embargo lifted, and all the previews and the reviews that came out ahead of launch was super positive as well. So I'm probably about 2.5, 3 hours in. So I'm a fair bit behind you, Flav, after your sort of marathon sessions. But I really, really like what I've played so far. It's obviously, what it is? It's a complete departure from pretty much anything that I've played in a long time. It's colorful, it's vibrant, it's funny, and it controls super well. The abilities that, at least the ones that I've been introduced to, are fun and intuitive to use. I'm looking at the footage from Pucks here as well. This is fairly early on of the game, so I've actually played this bit, and just the how they present the how do I describe it? Just how they present the almost the levels as sort of you being part of somebody's mind, and how they introduce the enemies and in terms of like, all right, well, this is doubt, and then how those enemies, I guess, interact with, or how they fare against your own abilities is really, really well done. I think it's caught people by surprise. I think people who are playing this for the first time, probably myself including, that I'm maybe a little bit surprised as to just how good it is as a platformer. Strip the humor away, strip the color away, it just feels good to play. So really, really enjoying it. And like I said, not too far in, but I'm definitely going to be hopefully finishing that over the next week.
One thing that they get right, and they get wrong so easily in lots of these sort of games, is the camera movement. They've absolutely nailed the camera movement, and not clipping into walls and obscuring your view and stuff. They've done such a fantastic job with that. And like you say, the movement controls and the sort of the fighting mechanics, they're all absolutely spot on. Pucks, this is right up your alley, isn't it? This sort of game.
Oh, 100%. This is like my favorite type genre in general when it comes to gaming. But so I was looking forward to this since it got revealed, I think, earlier this year or late last year, whenever it was. But oh man, I've been having such a blast with this. I think we've discussed as you said earlier, where you are currently in the game. I think I'm just a bit ahead of you at the moment. So, but I did. There's a lot of optional stuff which I quite liked in the game, which I won't say, for sake of spoiling for people who haven't joined it yet. But it is great to know that the game in general does open up more after you kind of, I don't know, after about an hour and a half in or 2 hours in maybe. So I did like the fact that you're not just following a linear story. There are actually all these different varying paths and branches you can go down, and optional things you can do, and just enjoy, as Scott was saying, just enjoy the colourful, vibrant landscapes, because there's so many different varied locations, which always surprised me. Like, I never expect to see anything like it, and then I see it, and it's just like, holy cow, this is cool. And then, it's just so much to enjoy. No, I'm loving it so far.
No, me too. Judzilla, Luke, you've both been diving in as well. I think you're quite early on as well, both of you, aren't you? But best thing you've played so far this year, do you think? Is that a big statement?
That's a pretty big statement for me. Like you said, I'm quite near the beginning. I'm loving it though. I mean, I must admit, listening to Microsoft, the people associated with the game, you could tell they had something pretty special on their hands.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you have something like someone's mind, like the others were saying, the regret and the emotions and that you're battling, it's fantastic. The way the narrative's driven is brilliant. The humor's fantastic. And things like this, what we're looking at on screen now, I mean, there's so many options. I can't wait to get further in, because there's so many options that things could just pop up, and in this world, it makes sense. Like a door appearing in the floor and you go to another level. So yeah, I'm not sure it's the best thing I've played this year. I'll have to think on that one, but it's extremely impressive.
That's interesting. Do you think, Luke, do you think it's a Game of the Year contender at the Game Awards?
Yeah, for sure. I've probably played about 3 hours so far. I can already tell it's going to be one of the best things I've played this year. I don't know about the best. Yeah. I'd have to wait and see, but definitely, I don't see why not. It's a really great game, and I think, as I was saying in the green room, as it were, I played the original back when it released. It was not successful at all commercially. It really bombed. In fact, I think it put Majesco out of business. That's how bad it did, who were the publisher at the time. And then since then, it's this like whispered cult classic, in typical Double Fine, tradition, really, that they make these really, really memorable games. So I always knew that a sequel would be good. It was just whether we were ever going to get one after the disaster that was the first game. But luckily, obviously, they had the FIG raise on it, and then Microsoft came in, seemingly allowed them to put more stuff in. I think boss battles were a big one. So they were having to cut those because their funding was running out, and then they've been able to reinsert them. So which is great, and it's just brilliant. It's just it's clever Double Fine writing. It's typical Double Fine game. It never really makes you laugh out loud, but you've always got a smile on your face. It's always very witty, sharp dialogue.
It's very intelligent, isn't it?
Yeah, very intelligent. And Tim Schafer's like that. It's there were a couple of bits. There's a couple of characters that do actually make me laugh quite considerably, which I think is cool. And I think echo what Scott said in that it's a very tight platformer. It controls very well, and platformers live or die by that. If you have floaty jumps or anything like that, and you can't really judge jumps very well, then they're crap. They just don't work. And this does that brilliantly, and the combat's also surprisingly quite good. The first game, the combat's not very good. It's not very tight. But here it's really polished. I think that's a good word for the game overall. It's super polished. Yeah. It's really, really polished. So, it's fantastic.
Fantastic. Well, yes, I hope to see this at the Game Awards, like you say, even just as a nominee. That would be something. And, very well deserved by the Double Fine team and Tim Schafer. But fantastic. Well, let's move on with topic one. We've not even started topic one yet, and we're 22 minutes in. So thank you, chat, for being here. Panel. Yeah, let's get cracking with this one then. So, as I mentioned earlier, Judzilla and Luke and I were on the Indie Gamer Showcase, and we were commenting on the opening night live of Gamescom. And not too many people surprised, the final date for Halo was announced of December the 8th. I think... Personally, I was still thinking that November the 15th was going to be a launch date that was going to be probably likely. And I think personally, and perhaps I'm wrong, and that's something we can discuss right now, actually, but I think November 15th was certainly their target date. But it looks like it slipped to December the 8th. And, well, as we know, they've already had to cut some things out of it to get it to launch at December the 8th by looks of things like Forge and co-op campaign. And perhaps we'll come to you first, Luke, if that's okay. Do you think November the 15th was actually their launch title? Because their launch date, because obviously the special edition console launches on that date, and we were talking actually on the indie show, weren't we? Whether pushing it back 3 weeks, we actually bought them a little bit of time. So, do you think November the 15th was their actual intended target date for the launch of this?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably the date they always had in their mind as they were kind of coming up to the final few months of development. Clearly, I think, as I said on Indie's show, I think it's coming in super hot still, and every day that they can get for development up until the end of the year within reason, I think is what they. It's what they want. So that's probably why it's December the 8th. Because if you think about it, the game has to go gold, I guess, about a month before. So, as soon as it goes gold, they'll be into, day one patch mode anyway. And there was no way, if you think that the game would have had to go gold, let's say mid-October, had it been a November the 15th launch date, then clearly that's just too soon for them, and as you said, that's even with them dropping certain elements of the game to get it out December 8th. So that tells you all you need to know about how hot that's coming in. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be bad by any stretch, but it does mean that they've had to clearly make some sacrifices, and one of those was the release date, I think, because they would have loved to have launched it 20th anniversary, the specific day rather than the year.
Do you think December the 8th was the latest they could launch with still trying to catch the console sales window for the holiday season?
Yeah, to some extent. I don't know whether they're really that bothered anymore about console sales in terms of trying to get games to launch alongside, a specific period. Yeah, I don't think so. I really don't think Microsoft anyway. I don't think are looking at that anymore. But I think for sure, that seems you can't really launch it mid-December. It's too late at that point. You want to catch the window where people are spending money in the lead up till Christmas, and it's apart from people like me who shop last minute. It's not around that time. So. But
with spending money, do you mean buying physical copies then?
I mean everything, not just subscriptions, spending money, buying physical copies, all of that. Consoles as well, for sure. That will be part of it, but I don't think that's the main factor anymore. So
be interesting to see how much the subscription numbers go up when it launches, just to see if people are actually waiting for that or whether they've jumped in already.
I would think it'll be quite significant that their numbers will go up when Halo launches.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Jadzilla, again, you was on the show with us. Was you surprised by the December the 8th date? Because I've got to be honest, I think I was. I mean, and I know there was rumours about it before anyway, but I was quite surprised when it was actually confirmed to be December the 8th.
Yeah, I was surprised. I think they were looking for November 15th, personally. Like I said on the night, you don't get 20-year anniversaries very often. When they come along, you want to make a massive splash. It's Halo, it's the flagship franchise for Microsoft. So yeah, I 100% think they were. With the delay and just 3 weeks really make a difference, but depends when the decision was made. Because if you look at Forza, so Forza would normally come out in September. So I think they've made a decision. They've had a decision made that they're going to do December, and they've launched Forza in November and Halo in December. As part of a strategy. So, I mean, I'm a software engineer in my main job, as you know, and so people say, is 3 weeks going to make any difference? Well, it depends when you make the decision. If you make the decision a week before release, 3 weeks isn't going to help you. But, if you plan this out, then yeah, you can definitely make use of that 3 weeks. But yeah, I'm still a little bit disappointed. What we saw was awesome. The custom stuff, awesome. I'm just still a little bit disappointed because they're in a position now that whatever your thoughts on it are, you're correct. If you're looking forward to it and can't wait, absolutely, I am. If you're worried about the campaign because it's coming in so hot, you're right to feel like that. And that's the position they're in. I feel sorry for 343. I think they're in a no-win situation. I think it's probably been a failure of leadership at that studio. But I was thinking about this earlier, Flap. They've had problems with Halo mainline games or talking points, let's say. If you think back to Halo 1, that was an Apple exclusive. And then Microsoft got it for the original Xbox, right? So all the Apple people are going crazy. Halo 2, Joe Staten presented that at E3 and then came back to the studio and said, yeah, we're going to have to start again, guys. And that went crazy. Yeah. Halo 3 was good. Halo 4 we know about, campaign multiplayer, same with 5. So Bungie aren't, when people look at it, it's a bit rose-tinted glasses for me when people talk about Bungie in the good old days. They've always seemed to have a problem with this, which is, I don't really understand it, but I'm going off on one now. So yeah, I think they were probably going to looking to launch because it's such an iconic date, and missing it is a real shame. But they're doing things like the custom hardware on that day. I think they're looking to do the campaign show or show and tell on that date as well. So yeah, it's a shame, but I'm really still looking forward to it, to be honest.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Do you not think that the plan was for them to launch Forza Horizon 5 and Halo Infinite in November?
No. Well, this is one I go back and forth with. I think the question was slightly different with Indies. How are you doing? Indies just turned up in the chat. I think the question was slightly different. It's like, can Microsoft launch two AAA games in the same month? And I said, yes, I think they definitely can, because these are obviously two different genres. And people sort of gravitate to what they really enjoy playing. And secondly, you've got the fact you do have the Game Pass. variable now these days. Which some people think's good, some people think's bad, but you do have that variable. So 100% they could launch within the same month. Yeah.
Yeah, see, and it's quite exciting going forwards because obviously, there's so many AAAs that Microsoft have, in their first-party studios now that if there is kind of a bottleneck in the future, I take your point. Perhaps they wouldn't want to launch 2 first-person shooters in the same month. Don't know. It's interesting to see their strategy, how they're going to deal with that going forwards because it's a fantastic problem to have, isn't it? Trying to sort out your release windows, and I'm not sure that. They could have quite easily launched Forza Horizon 5 in October, if the game was ready by then. So it kind of feels like it had to be November. And like you say, it didn't seem like they were shying away from launching both in the same month. It's just, like you say, unfortunately, Halo, with the development issues that it has obviously had to be pushed back. But Scott, let's come to you, my friend. We didn't see any campaign footage, which was a little bit of a surprise. I was fully expecting to see a little bit more. And let's be honest, we haven't seen anything since the Craig video. And it's getting a little bit late now, isn't it? Where are we? We're at the very end of August. We've got September, October, November. Do you think Microsoft will have another kind of event that actually starts to show off some of the single-player campaign footage? Because I think people are starting to ask a few questions now, aren't they, as to what state the game is actually in even now.
Yeah, I wasn't personally too surprised. I was, I guess, disappointed that we didn't see more gameplay, just because I really want to see sort of what they've done.
Is that because you're a fan of the series though, or because you want some reassurance that they're on track for December the 8th?
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit of both, really, because as a big fan of Halo and somebody who's invested in that story, I'm curious to see where the single player goes because. From a story perspective, there was a big miss with Halo 5. And what we've seen kind of so far of Halo Infinite story-wise, it looks at least a little bit more interesting. But, the graphic side of things from last year's reveal was underwhelming for some. So as a fan and just out of curiosity, I was a little disappointed we didn't see, but I wasn't surprised. They had, I guess, a little bit of a developer update video that they released on the Friday before, I think, just to get ahead of it, to deliver the news that Campaign Co-op and Forge weren't going to be present at launch. And Joe Staten said during that particular video that they weren't ready to show Campaign again just yet, and that they were looking to do something a little bit closer to launch. So I think after that, I had zero expectations going into Gamescom that we would see anything Halo related. I wasn't really expecting anything Halo related from a multiplayer perspective or release date perspective until pretty much a few hours before, when it seemed to get out. And I was like, right, this is happening. I think based on what they've said is, look, they're kind of, I think they described it as shutdown mode. They're in shutdown mode at the moment. And essentially what they don't want to do is they don't want to take development resource away from the team to basically pull out a build that they can then capture footage from and use to show off the campaign. Now, whether you believe that or not is obviously another matter. And I guess I'll leave that up to you guys. I think really the reason they haven't showed off just yet is they need to make sure it's as polished as it can possibly be, because they know how much scrutiny that build or whatever they show of it is going to be under. People are going to pick that thing apart. So from their perspective, they're going to be trying to ensure that it is as polished as it can possibly be. And I think they'll leave it until the very last second to show off the campaign again. So it's in its best possible state. Whether that's a good state or not is obviously we'll have to wait and see, but I think they'll leave it as late as possible. But I'm pretty confident. I mean, they've said it themselves that we'll see something before launch, and I'm really excited to see whatever that is. I want to see where they go with the story. I want to see the improvements they've made to the engine, and just this semi-open world nature of a Halo game is still something, as someone who's played all the Halo games, is something that's really, really exciting. So I hope they're able to pull it off. But in terms of the release date, Flap, you know what it is? I think they would have loved to, but I think really from their perspective, it was just make sure it's out this year. I think that's the only thing. I think the specific date was less of a concern, and that's why they've cut some content for launch.
Do you think it worked that way round? Do you think Microsoft said, look, you have to get this game out on December the 8th, cut what you need to, obviously cut some of the things that are going to, not break the game, as in terms of, make it playable as a single player. And obviously the Forge has gone. That was probably quite an easy one to strike off.
Yeah.
I should think co-op campaign was a bit of a tougher one, but
yes.
I can't imagine what else they could cut and still actually be able to launch, for December the 8th.
Yeah, well, those are the only two things they could cut, really. And I'd even argue that campaign co-op was something that's borderline something that they couldn't cut, and yet they still cut it because of how important that has been to the Halo franchise in the past. But Forge hasn't always launched day one, and I guess even something like Halo 5, there was a lot of controversy over that because it didn't have any split screen at all. It didn't get it down the line. It just didn't have it at all. So I think I agree with Luke. I think it was Luke that said it earlier, where December 8th is essentially the final date of the year they could release the game. I don't think they could go any further than that. And then they said, right, what do we need to do to get it ready? Forget the anniversary, just what do we need to do to get it out this year? And hopefully, it's in a good state, because at the moment, as excited as I am, I still do have concerns. Everybody said that this game's coming in hot, and I'm really curious as to what state it's going to be in come launch. And with regards to kind of when campaign co-op, I know jumped slightly off topic here, but in terms of when campaign co-op and when Forge come, what I don't want is a Master Chief Collection situation where they're going to spend the first couple of months after launch just fixing the bloody thing because they rushed it out. And
that's the thing around
additional features.
Yeah, they said by season 1 these things should be here, but actually, they're going to have a lot of work to do with season 1, aren't they? So, like you say, is actually the time. Do you think it would be possible for them actually to delay the first season by 3 months just to actually get the game into the state that they wanted it in for launch, and then work on the seasons from sort of month 3 onwards? Do you think?
So I think season 1's at launch. The multiplayer season 1 will be sort of there at launch, and then season
I meant the first season, if you see what I mean. Yeah,
and then so season 2, the seasons are generally meant to last around 3 months. I think they've said. I still think they'll stick to that cadence. I still think each season will be 3 months. The question will be what features are included within each season. So we might not. I don't think it'll be a case of. Season 2 will be delayed to allow campaign co-op to be included in season 2. I think it might just be right. Campaign co-op is now a season 3 feature, and I think season 2 will essentially still go ahead, because I think, at least my understanding of it, is that's going to be essentially 2 teams. They're going to have a multiplayer team, and then obviously the single player team. And the single player team, it's whether they can get that ready. But I think the multiplayer team, in terms of whatever additions they're looking to make to the multiplayer experience, are still going to have that ready for that 3 month schedule, whether that be new maps, new content, new battle passes, things like that. And I think, as it's a live service game, they'll obviously look at other live service games, and they'll know they have to keep updating the multiplayer side of things to keep people happy, to keep people spending.
Do the seasons not expand into the single player campaign as well?
I don't know. Well, obviously we know there's going to be single player features that are kind of launch alongside them, but I don't think they're necessarily going to be linked. I think there is going to be some lore linked to the season. So we know season 1 is themed on Reach. So there is going to be lore associated with them, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be directly linked to the single player campaign, unless we get maybe DLC down the line, where it's a new story, maybe set in another period, whether that be before Infinite or after, and then maybe the theme of that season is linked to that new story. I could be wrong, admittedly, but I think the seasons will stick as they are. They'll be scheduled as they are, because they know it's a live service game. They've got to keep that season on track. They'll look at other games where something like Apex Legends, which I play quite regularly, and that's had criticism for not having content coming quick enough. While Fortnite, that has something new every bloody week. And then it'll just be a case of, is the team working on the campaign able to get that feature ready for the launch of season 2? If not, season 3 it is. I think that's how it'll work.
No, that's interesting, and like you say, hopefully we'll be getting some more details on that. Obviously, between now and launch. Puxley, what's your confidence levels with Halo? Was you a little bit disappointed to not see some more footage? Because, like I say, the last time we saw anything was Craiggate. Did you think that that's kind of knocked them a little bit, and they've kind of, like you say, they've gone into sort of lockdown, as it were, just to get this game finished, and don't want to risk some more bad PR in the meantime?
It's an interesting one from my angle, actually, because I think just before, I think it was about maybe a week or so earlier last week, or maybe even 2 weeks ago, just before we saw, or was hoping to see some updated stuff. Again, it was one of those things where you take it with a large pinch of salt, but there was like an anonymous Reddit post that went up a while back which is apparently from an insider dev on the Halo team, who was basically calling out how multiplayer is going really well, the betas are doing really well, and obviously, the betas are definitely helping in terms of making sure that the multiplayer is tip top, but apparently the campaign has been an absolute shambles even this late in development. And again, as I say, you read those things, take it with a large grain of salt, but then the lack of campaign footage or anything of the like kind of made me think that actually maybe this thing is real. And I went back to that Reddit thread not long ago, and a lot of people do believe it's quite credible because there's no real BS in there, and the level of that kind of technical detail in this article it's very specific to the point of like there's no point in making it up, if that makes sense. So if anything, reading that and then kind of going back to it afterwards kind of, I suppose, helped temper my own expectations. And I think the general consensus of this thread was the guy saying, yeah, the campaign's in shambles. I can't remember the people's names, but one of the creative directors had left or something. Someone else came in and basically started tearing apart the campaign, moving story beats around, and apparently there was no real internal agreement as to how the story should flow in certain, like, say, key story beats and stuff. So that kind of made me think that, it made me assuming that was true, yes, there could be a delay. And in seeing that, it's not coming out in November, as everyone has said, December 8th, kind of, even in my mind, makes it even more credible that actually maybe that is the case, to the point I think even the devs themselves publicly said in the gaming news about a week or so ago that they originally did consider trying to delay the game until inevitably pushing forward. But then I think as everyone else has said already, I think the main reason we are still seeing it this year is because Microsoft want it released this year. And there's no other reason apart from I think they want it out this year. There cannot be another delay. So the whole thing it does seem a bit... I think, as Judd Zilla said, actually, it seems like, if anything, there's been massive leadership issues regarding how around the campaign specifically, how it should be composed and put together, to the point it's just caused issue after issue. And bearing in mind, this is also the first Halo game where it's pretty open world, right? And that you can do objectives in any order you want within reason, up to a checkpoint, and then the story continues, is how I understand it. And from what this article also said, it also did shine some light on why the campaign co-op has also been delayed. And it was one of the specifics it did mention was how in the co-op campaign you could have up to 4 of you, whatever it is, campaign, that you're going up to do a firefight to beat an objective. But the idea is that actually you don't have to all stick together. You can actually separate to go to different parts of the map and wipe out the enemies, do whatever you need to do, and then to open a gate, for example. And then one of the key issues was, I think, how checkpointing apparently works. So in most Halo games, you do it's quite very linear. You do a firefight, you beat the firefight, and then there's a checkpoint. And if anyone dies, you reset back to that and you carry on. But because this one's open world, I think the main issue there was the fact that, well, if the host, who's in charge of keeping track of the checkpoint? If it's the host, then if the host wins a firefight and someone else doesn't, do they have to be sent miles back to run back in? Apparently that wasn't very fun to play, so they considered trying to move checkpoints so that it's local, but then there was issues of objective tracking when it was independent checkpoints per player in the same world. So again, massive grain of salt, but it reads true enough based on the information we kind of know now, that to the point I'm not saying I believe it 100%, but it feels very credible. And from a technical standpoint, it does seem to explain why these delays are occurring in the first instance. So it is a shame, but I'd like to think that I think Microsoft are basically betting on the multiplayer to temper people on until that co-op does come in for those that like it. But it does sound like there's a lot of technical hiccups still to be resolved. So I think even though Microsoft, I believe, would have loved to have it out in that November window to meet with that 20th anniversary, as the others have said already, I can't help but feel that given all that technical stuff, which seems to be in, all the buggy mess that's in the works to try and solve, that, yeah, I completely agree with what everyone else has said, that they just want it out this year no matter what. And I'd like to think also I'd like to think they'd love to have had it come out in the to be a contender of Game of the Year, I guess. But again, as everyone else has said, and I've said it about 3 times already now, that I think they just want it out in the wild and fix it afterwards. Seems to be the way. That's how I view it, at least. But
yeah, no, that is how it seems, to be honest. And Luke, perhaps we'll come to you. Do you think Microsoft were obviously strong-arming 343 just to get this game out? Because unlike, it was quite refreshing actually to hear Tim Schafer around Double Fine saying, actually, Microsoft, they let us get on with it. They allowed us to be as creative as we needed to be. He didn't have to worry about the paychecks and stuff. Not quite the same with your flagship franchise, I'm guessing, Luke. Do you think Microsoft have been strong-arming 343 just to, ship up and ship out, basically, get this game out?
Yeah, I would think to some extent, not just because it's a, flagship franchise, but also because, how many years has this been in development now? Is it 6 years? It's and obviously part of that is them kind of building a new engine, etc. But it's clearly, it's clearly had lots of development difficulties. Like, it's not just, I don't think it's just that, it's 343, they're not as good as Bungie, so therefore we don't like them. I think they've had 2 creative directors leave in that time. I think, and obviously the debacle last year. So I think Microsoft and 343 are a huge studio, as in terms of personnel, right? They're one of the biggest out there. So I think it's Microsoft just going, look, let's just get it out. It's good enough to go. Clearly, I think the multiplayer seems very polished already. It needs to be optimized, but it's very polished. Campaign seems to have, undergone changes. We don't know if that's good or bad. We don't know what it looks like really at the moment, apart from some screenshots we have. I'm sure it will be decent. I don't know how good. But I think Microsoft probably said, look, it's time to release the game, and we can worry about some, as long as it's in a competent shape on day one, campaign and multiplayer, that's all they're looking for at the moment. Because
can Microsoft afford that though? Because obviously something like Cyberpunk, had lots of hype, and they were big enough. They were masters of their own destiny on that one, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, the game didn't sell. Is there more riding on Halo than just the game itself for Xbox? Do you think, on Microsoft?
It's a good and difficult question, I guess. I don't think so. I think Halo's an important franchise to Microsoft. It's not as important as it was because they've got many more franchises now, right? So, and the way that their business is set up means that they don't have to be reliant on Halo doing particularly well. Clearly, it will do well because it's Halo, and it's making a bit of a comeback this year, after being in the doldrums a little bit, in 4 and 5. Not that they weren't successful games, but, if you look at them in the context of, 2 and 3 in particular, they weren't of that size. They were they were almost on the level, I remember back in the day, they were on the level of a Call of Duty or a Grand Theft Auto release. They were huge. So I don't think it's as important for Microsoft that Halo launches and it's absolutely incredible. It has to be good. And also, I don't expect, and I'll temper my words, I don't expect it to launch in anything like the state that Cyberpunk did, which was terrible. Right? So, Cyberpunk clearly had lots, also, very lengthy development time, lots and lots of issues. I think they changed creative director. But, clearly when Cyberpunk was rushed out, they needed probably an extra year and a half to do the game. I don't think Halo will launch in that state. I mean, put the campaign co-op and the Forge element aside, I don't think the game will be in a state where it clearly needed tons of optimization, bug fixes, all of that sort of stuff. I don't think it'll be like that at all. And this is when it comes out, and it's absolutely, it's worse than Cyberpunk. So that someone timestamp this, but I'm sure it won't be. But yeah, I don't think they're reliant on it in that way anymore. It clearly has to do well for them because it's their most important franchise on paper. But when you've got like going forward, when you've got Elder Scrolls in your back pocket, and stuff like that, you've got stuff that can move the needle as well on subscriptions, etc. So.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Like you say, they've got a pretty tasty lineup now because, like you say, with the acquisition specifically of Bethesda, it probably does ease the burden on Halo having to be the absolute breadwinner as it comes, in terms of gaining subscriptions and stuff like that. So, and that's a fair point. Jadzilla, what did we make of the new hardware? I know, obviously, again, Luke and I were on the indie show. I think Luke's managed to bag the Series 2 controller, Elite controller. What did you make of the Xbox itself as well, Juds?
Loved it. It was a massive surprise. Yeah. I mean, everyone's today they're like, "Oh, I need an Xbox Series X. I can't get one." And then there's custom hardware at the default. Not just the console, but obviously its controller that's bundled as well as the Elite 2. I was bugging Luke in the DM saying I can't find it. Send me a link, and he sent a link, and I ordered the controller as well. It looks absolutely awesome. I've got the Elite Series 2 right now. It's showing its wear because I've been giving it some hammer, as you do.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, I think it's fantastic. It's the sort of thing that takes the edge off the disappointment just a little bit. It's the first custom console they're releasing, but Halo have always had a custom console, so that's a thing of beauty as well. I didn't get the console. I must admit, I thought that was a step too far. Having already got a Series X, but I think they both look absolutely stunning. Really happy with it.
Completely agree. I love that gold D-pad as well. I mean, I love the D-pad on the Series. Well, Series 1 and 2. They've got similar D-pads, but yeah, just that gold against the green was fantastic. Chat, just let us know if you were lucky enough to actually bag a Halo console or Series 2 Elite controller. Scott, I think they missed an absolute trick here, and I'm so annoyed at Microsoft because they could have had some of my money. I think the way to go with this was to actually create a Series S special edition. If not one, then both, because I would have seriously considered getting a Series S Halo edition, because I got Series X. I don't need another one. Series S, yeah, that could have been my second console, and I would have really considered getting that. So I think there was a trick miss there. What was your take?
Yeah, actually, that's a really interesting point, Flap, that I hadn't ever really considered. Now, just in the general scheme of things, comparing those two SKUs, you got the S and the X. Do you think we'll see many, if any, custom edition Series S? Or do you think it'll be like, because I imagine there'll probably be a Starfield one next year, maybe. Do you think we're going to see custom Series S's going forward, ignoring this one? Or do you reckon they will stick to an X when doing
it? Depends which way round people work, doesn't it? I think most hardcore gamers would have a Series X, and perhaps the more casual gamers would have a Series S. So I think when it comes to the special editions like that, if you're in the market for another console, I think you would probably be in the market for, like you say, a second console that's not quite as powerful. So I think, like I say, I think the special editions on the Series S is possibly a better way to go for the time being, perhaps. So I'd like to think we would see special editions on those, but. Yeah, and like you say, Starfield, Elder Scrolls, as and when that launches, they've got so many options with some fantastic games coming out. That's an interesting one, that.
The one thing, I don't know if this has any bearing on this at all, but the rumors were ahead of the launch last year that they were actually taking a bigger hit profit-wise. Well, I don't think any of them are making profit. They were taking a bigger hit on each production of the Series S compared to the X. So they
Right.
they were
That's
they were
interesting.
losing more money on the Series S than the X, I believe was the rumor at the time. But I say I don't know if there's
Although-
any truth to that. So I wonder if that has any.
Well, they're charging a premium. The Series X is £20, if not $20-$30 more than the normal one. And it's obviously
Yes.
got a slightly higher production cost as well. But probably there's a little bit of extra money they could squeeze out. I guess a profit on that.
The one thing on that, though, Flab, is that I think a lot of people miss, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's more expensive. It actually does come with a copy of Halo Infinite when it launches, which obviously has kind of like I guess theoretically a $60 value associated to it. So that's probably worth mentioning.
But the thing is, though, Scott, wrongly, I'm completely wrong to think this way, but I just assume the vast majority of people have got Game Pass. So actually, that $60 game that comes with it to me is almost pointless.
That's
an interesting
fair,
point.
but it is included in it. So I guess there is some justification to the actual price increase. Now the Series 2 controller, that's a different story, because that's the same controller, still the old revision. It's kind of not the updated version. So I don't know if it'll come between now and November 15th, but and I guess just for transparency, I've pre-ordered one of those things straight away.
Have you really?
Alongside Luke. Because it's the older version, I'm not too sure if it has things like the DLI that the Series X and S controllers have at the moment. Obviously, it doesn't come necessarily with a dedicated share button per se as well, obviously, because it is still the old Series 2, and then that is still a £20 premium on top of the current Series 2 controller. I think it's 160 to 180 here in the UK, with no real justification other than it has like a custom paint job, which is a very cool custom paint job, but beyond that, it doesn't have anything extra. Like I say, it doesn't come with a copy of the game. It might come with some freebies for Halo Infinite, like skins, maybe. I might be mixing that up.
I think it does. It comes with it comes with some tassel that you can put on your gun in game, like some cosmetic. It's not a skin. It's like a. I'll have to find it, but it does
call it charm.
Charm, yeah,
Yes,
like a charm,
yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Tassels are something a little different.
That goes in a different part of your body.
Yeah.
Don't think anything that I don't think the freebies it comes with necessarily justify the additional £20, but because I'm a little bit of a fool, and I couldn't help myself, I was just waiting for an excuse basically to buy a Series 2 Elite, because I don't have one just yet. And then I think the custom paint job just sent me over the edge. So it'll be interesting to see if we see Series S custom consoles in the future. I'm pretty confident we will. I think, especially considering how bloody good that little thing looks. I've got it right next to me as well. They could do some cool stuff, especially if they did something, with the grill for the fan. And how they could potentially incorporate that into the paint job. But I do think the Series X is a console, because it's kind of like a tower. I think it does, I guess, lean itself more towards being a custom console, but both of them looked awesome. Like I say, I've pre-ordered the Series 2 Elite right away, and I'm looking forward to hopefully that not breaking at some point in the near future after getting it.
Yeah, I was a little surprised to not see perhaps a Series Elite 2.5, let's call it, with the share button, not necessarily the Series Elite 3. Whatever that may bring, even if it will ever exist. But I was a little bit, because I think that would have been a great opportunity as well. Again, I think they missed a trick there to actually entice in some Series 2 controller owners with that, other than just the obviously the color scheme, have that share button on there as well, and like I say, the latency stuff. But
they better not release a Series 3 in the next sort of.
Well, and that's
I'll be pissed if I've just spent 100.
Well, that's the danger. Yeah, exactly. That's the danger. But to be honest, if the Series 2 Halo version had the share button and the low latency stuff, then the stuff that Series 3 has, whatever that has, it would just be on top of what you've already got, I guess. But Pux, was you tempted to? I mean, you've got a Series X. Do you think you may have been tempted if there was a Series S special edition? And are you tempted to the Series 2 Elite controller?
Not at all, I'm afraid, for both of those questions.
Boo.
Okay. Why is that?
I mean, I have a Series X. I live in a flat apartment, whatever you want to call it. So I have no need for a second console. And if I was to buy a second console, it might as well be a PS5. I personally have no reason to buy a second console of the same ecosystem I already own for. I don't need it in another room because, well, I say I live in a 2-bed flat, right? So the distance between the bedroom and the living room is nothing. So I don't necessarily have to worry about, I want a console upstairs or anything like that. But
Okay.
I mean, a couple of years ago, I would have been very tempted to have a new shiny console with a load of graphics and stickers all over it. But as of right now, I mean, that's all I see it as. It's just a new box with some graphics and stickers all over it, and it's actually no different under the hood. So, as much as it looks nice, I personally don't really care too much about buying something new like that. Personally, I mean, it'd have to be a very I was about to say it have to be a very particular franchise that I love to pieces for me to even consider re-buying a console with just stickers all over it. But I think even
bucks.
Well,
which franchise? Which franchise
Kingdom
would
Hearts.
make you?
No, that's why. That's why I stopped myself, because it would have been, if it's anything like Legend of Zelda based, then I may consider it. But even then, like, I would just see it as something. Like, I know, having done similar things in the past, that once I have it in my hands, it will feel no different than the base one, just that it looks a bit different. It does nothing different extra for me, which necessarily benefits the extra cost, in my opinion, or from my perspective.
But the Series 2 Elite controller wouldn't it? I mean, if that is a significant step up from the base controller. Is that not a consideration for yourself?
Well, kind of what Scott was saying. I like the current. I mean, I don't have much experience of the old Xbox controller, if you will. I mean, because I jumped back in from PS4 to Series X, so. And I know that the new controllers, the old controllers don't necessarily have any of the hardware improvements as the current ones. So, like Scott was saying, in a way, I'd rather wait until there is an improved Series 3, whatever you call it, that is basically the Series controller with all the extra doodads, than get an old Gen 1, if that makes sense. I'd rather wait until a potential new hardware revision than an older one.
They missed a trick there, didn't they? Yeah, I wonder how close or how far out the Series 3 Elite controller is, or whether it will actually ever come. I personally think it almost has to, because obviously, the Series 2 Elite controller is now actually behind in terms of some of the buttons that it has compared to the base and bog standard Series controller. So there almost has to be a Series 3. But yeah, it makes you wonder how far out it is. I'm guessing we may see that at some point next year. And like Scott says, you don't want them to announce it anytime soon, because people have probably stuck some money down on the Halo Special Edition version. But Pax, I'm conscious, yes, someone's just prompted. We haven't done any comments yet from the chat. Where are we with the comments?
Yeah, I've got a few comments here. We have got a question for the panel, but I will do that last.
Cool.
So I'll start with the comments first. So Pyro M, 343 only managed to get back into the offices mid-July as a full team. That is the most likely reason for pushing towards a December launch. Indie Gamer,
is that a valid reason though? Because surely all of the studios have been suffering like that. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's perfectly valid, Flap. If I'm being honest, I think Luke touched on it earlier. They're one of the biggest studios in the world. There are thousands of people working on Halo Infinite, no doubt, not just full-time staff, but contractors and freelance people. So I think it's probably, obviously every studio has been impacted by the pandemic, absolutely. But I think a company or a development team the size of Infinite's have probably been hit more than most. So I think it's fairly valid, but that kind of goes back to the original question, right? If they've been impacted by it that much, and if the game's not ready, then delay it into next year. They have that. Microsoft, whether 343 did, had the choice to push it back if they felt they needed more time to give them from July onwards to develop, I guess, at full capacity, and I guess for lack of a better term, now that they're back in the office.
It does make you wonder if, like I say, Xbox, perhaps 343 really did want to delay it, but Xbox were like, no, you've had your year's extension. Just makes you wonder, but interesting. Yeah, and like you say, I fully appreciate that. Obviously, the larger the studio, the more difficult it is to work remotely and stuff. Makes me wonder if it's all hands to the pumps, whether they're pulling in, resource from, across the wider Xbox Game Studios sort of the game developers that they now have to just help get this bloody game out the door. But
get Playground on it. They'll finish it in about 2 weeks, and it'll be great.
Yeah. Weren't there rumours of both the Coalition and the Motorsport team helping out with Infinite last year? If I remember right.
I remember the
That's one of reasons
Coalition
Motorsport-
stuff. Yeah.
Just a
Don't know
point
about
about
the
that as well. I think it's definitely a valid reason. I don't think we know as much as we probably think we do about the impact of the pandemic. You say it has affected everyone, and you're absolutely right. But we've still seen Forbidden West delayed, God of War delayed, Gran
Yeah, that's
Turismo.
true.
Well, that game never comes out regardless because they can't seem to release it. But that's another question. But if you think of the sort of logistics alone of the things they're doing, plus a new engine, plus a new style of game, it's just another one of those things that's piled upon, plus the people leaving the studio. It's just another thing that's added to the backlog of issues that they've got to fix. So I think it definitely is. And in my job as well, you sit on Teams meetings and you're trying to do builds and send massive, great big assets across, and then your broadband goes down, and So was it just my broadband? I think they got.
I think that's across the board. I can imagine how frustrating that is.
Yeah,
Pucks,
I think it's been a big impact. Sorry.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Pucks, what else have we got?
Yep, a few more here. Indie Gamer. This is around, I think, an earlier discussion about internal resources being moved into different parts of the game. So Indie said they've definitely done that. They've divided the game up to make it manageable to get it out to a date they've been forced to meet. Shizno Elite. People always want to believe the worst about 343, so anyone can come up with a rumor and people believe it. Indie Gamer again. No game should be forced out before it's ready. Mesako. Again, I believe this is about my comments regarding the rumor thread, the Reddit rumor thread. So Mesako says, sounds pretty bad situation for the campaign. Again, take what I did say about that with a massive grain of salt because you can never fully trust anything on the internet. Shizno Lit again, in my opinion, people will never admit that since 343 aren't called Bungie, they will never give 343 Halo's fair play. And if people need Halo 3 over and over, there's MCC. How hard is it to just trust that 343 and Microsoft will make the best decision possible for Halo and release? Oh my god! And I suppose I look at that and I think. Sorry,
I don't think it's hard to. I don't think it's hard to trust, but like you say, and perhaps I'm coming from a point of being kind of very, very keen to see where the game is, and we still haven't yet. So I do trust them to make the right decision, but I guess time will tell, won't it?
I was going to add to this as well. Like maybe it sounds like maybe our time on this topic, maybe it does sound like we are negatively talking about 343, but I personally don't think it's 343 specifically we're worried about. This could have belonged to anyone else, and and assuming that it's in the same position, I think all of us are, as gamers and fans, are right to question it. I think even if it was still in Bungie's hands, would we still think the same way? Maybe we will.
Yeah, probably. I have no particular beef with 343 whatsoever. Any studios. In fact, I'm more worried that, like I say, Microsoft are strong-arming them into getting this game out the door because it would suit Microsoft's finances better. And like Scott was saying, we'll just pick up the pieces afterwards, and we will damage control afterwards. I just hope that's not the case, but we'll see. We'll see.
And we did have a community question, actually. It's a bit off topic, but I will read it out. It comes from Pyro M, who says, question for both chat and panel. If any one of you still have an older Xbox console, will you power it up to try out the Xbox game streaming service when it goes live this holiday?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I want to try and see what it's like, but also, it's coming to the series consoles as well, so you can sort of play before you download it. So yeah, I certainly will. Luke, will you? Is that something you'll give a go?
I'll give it a go. I don't have an old console, but as you say, it's coming to the series console, so I'd like to see how it run. Like, it's an interesting one to see how it looks on a TV. If that, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, to see it kind of blown up. So yeah, definitely, I'll give it a go.
How often do you find yourself in the situation, particularly with Game Pass games, like, I'll give that a go, I don't know what it's like, but I'll give it a go? Because I can see that being the scenario where you might try it, stream it online. It's a little bit like Psychonauts 2, if you hadn't played the first one. It's like, I'll give it a go, and 10 minutes in you think, actually, this is bloody brilliant, and then decide to download it. Do you find yourself in that situation often?
No, but that's because I've got a 1 gig connection, so I never like the games are downloaded so quick that I don't because I think for people who like don't have great internet access or rather great access to quick speeds, I think it's going to be brilliant for that in terms of actually like I don't really want to commit to downloading this and I'd have to wait, so I'm gonna try it on the cloud. I think that's a fantastic thing. For me, probably not so much, but I'll definitely try it because I'm just interested to see how it performs. How good does it look? How close to native? Clearly, it's not going to look super close, but what's the latency like? That sort of thing.
Yeah,
so it's 1080 60. It'll be when it comes, which should be good. I guess it is better. I'll definitely be trying it just for curiosity. The one thing I'll use it for. I don't quite have Luke's super fast connection. I do. If there's a game I want to try, I'll still download it first because I'll want to try the native version before, deciding if I want to invest in it. Because the stream version, particularly from a control standpoint, might not really give me the full experience. But if anybody uses Microsoft Rewards. And you've got Game Pass weekly and monthly quests. So I do those all the time. It pretty much pays for Game Pass Ultimate for me. That'll be a really, really good way of doing those quests without having to download games. One of them was once I had to download like Elder Scrolls Online. It was like 100 gig or something just to play the bloody thing. And I did it, but then I just immediately uninstalled it like 10 minutes later. So it'll be good for me from that perspective, but I'll probably check it out more from a curiosity standpoint just to see technically how good is it? How does it compare to streaming through the Xbox app on PC to phone? How does that experience scale?
Yeah, no, I completely get that. Pucks, Judzilla, are you in the same sort of boat, do you think?
I'll go first then. I don't have an older console, so I can't compare, unfortunately. I like to think they'd be mostly the same, but I do, it is possible there is some difference because similarly with phones, I mean, when before I upgraded to my current phone, which is a Galaxy S20, I had a Galaxy S7, and even on 5G connection there, like on the older phone hardware, even though it's arguably just streaming, there is a noticeable performance difference, which is most likely due to the hardware Ethernet controllers embedded in those older devices compared to the new ones. So similarly, I think it'd be quite interesting to compare, how each Ethernet controller, I guess, and internal hardware stands up to streaming a game. But I like to think they're pretty similar for the most part. But I'm definitely diving in. I mean, even now, if I think about it, I do tend to try things on my phone or now on the like through Chrome on PC. But I would definitely plan to use it to kind of quickly test games on the fly to, without having to worry about downloading it. But I won't necessarily base my opinion on that because in the back of my mind, I'm aware that streaming will have those those graphical limitations or whatever else, and a few hiccups here and there. So I may well download things, but I'll definitely be up for trying it 100%.
Yeah, for me, well, firstly, I could say, Luke, can I have your internet connection, please? That's the first thing. It sounds like you've hijacked about 6 of Elon Musk satellites there for your own use.
Yeah, well,
it's a little bit selfish, is what I'm saying, but
me and Elon are close.
This answers a few things for me, actually. So number one, I'm definitely going to try it. I've got the day one edition Xbox One and an Xbox Series X in the bedroom. So I'm definitely going to try it. It opens up next gen for people that can't get the next gen consoles. That's massive, in my opinion. And there's another benefit to this, like you were saying, Flap, about trying something before downloading it. But it's also the case that you may want to play a game, but you've just downloaded the latest Call of Duty, which is 250 gig, and you haven't got room to install it or any expansions, so you can just play it streaming. So it's multiple use cases for this. So 100%, I'm definitely up for trying it out. I think it's a really good step.
Yeah, no, me too. And to be honest, it was an obvious one, wasn't it? And like you say, there was always those rumours of Flight Simulator coming to the previous generation, Gen 8 consoles, and it's like, blimey. But obviously, via cloud gaming, that's completely doable. It'd be interesting to see. And obviously, the controls aren't Twitch controls, although it would be interesting to see if you could sort of land a big jumbo jet at speed, a short runway, using the streaming service, just to see if it would affect that sort of gameplay side of things. But it's an option.
I think.
But it's going to be interesting to see how that all pans out. Well, fantastic. Right, well, that was kind of a mammoth one. Thank you very much, chat. Thank you, panel, for that. There's lots of discussion to be had there. To be honest, the topic was kind of born out, really, of whether, I say, Microsoft had actually planned to launch 2 huge AAA titles in the same month, and the precedent that might set going forwards for other large titles, particularly perhaps Holiday 2022. We've got Starfield coming, but does that also mean that something else, I don't know, let's say something like Forza Motorsport 8 launching in the same month, that kind of thing. It looks like that could be something that Microsoft would consider going forwards. So, like I say, I've said several times, Judzilla and Luke and I were on Indie Gamers GamesCom ONL show, and we were doing some live commentary, and that's obviously where the Halo December 8th time or release date dropped. But just wondering, guys, what else did you find particularly interesting and entertaining in the Gamescom's week? And we'll come to you first, Luke. Any particular highlights and outstanding games that you saw? And it's the same for chat. Let us know if there's any games that you were really excited for from the Gamescom show. There were quite a lot, really. There was far more than I guess I'd anticipated. I wasn't, I didn't go into any of it with particularly high expectations, so I came out of it quite pleased, generally. Off the top of my head, thinking about the stuff that I saw that I really liked the look of, Cult of the Lamb, which was the Devolver kind of, a roguelike, cutesy, but not cutesy roguelike that they announced. Looks super cool. There was Marvel Midnight Suns, which they didn't show any gameplay for that. That actually comes out in 3 days, I think. But the concept is just, I'm everything about it. I'm all in on that. It's essentially, it's Firaxis making an XCOM type game with Fire Emblem, which is just everything that in the Marvel universe, which is just fantastic. So that, I'd pre-order that today if I could, because I trust Firaxis quite heavily. So that looks super cool. Dokkaebi as well, which is the South Korean action adventure hyper realistic Pokemon, which just looks totally bonkers, just in a really great way. It's so hard to explain, but it, visually looked outstanding. The frame rate was a bit pants, but it's obviously early in development still. It was just really cool. That started life as an MMO, apparently.
It is, it is.
Thankfully
Thank
evolved
God.
into an open world. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't do MMOs, but it's ended up an open world RPG. And like you say, there's a very strange mix between hyper realistic kind of graphics when you're kind of zoomed in and looking close at stuff, and just this kind of cartoon world of characters that exist in it. But it really took my attention as well, actually.
Yeah, no, it's. I think it stole a lot of attention away from other games. It's because it's one of those that's just so memorable. So even if you didn't like the look of it, the chances are you'd remember it, which I think is a sign of something that's visually quite arresting, which that is. So that looked great. Saints Row, I'm really excited about. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. It looks like, I expected them to do a full reboot, and that's what they've done. So there was also, for anybody who's interested, the Volition released a kind of 8-minute explainer video recently with some more gameplay in it, just some snippets, but and kind of talking about their inspiration for the game and what they're aiming for, and it's just cool because it will let you do stuff like if you want to run a fast food drug trafficking empire like Gus Fring, you can do that in the game, which is just really, really cool. So that looked good. Forza Horizon 5 from the Xbox showcase continues to look amazing. And I think that there are other stuff. Oh, and another guilty pleasure. And I got why people were quite angry at this, but I really loved the Death Stranding stuff to close the show.
It is. I thought for a moment, I was like, Luke's not going to mention Death Stranding.
No, look, if you're into, they shouldn't have ended on it.
No,
it wasn't the one to end on at all. Should have been something more like Marvel Midnight Suns, or even Saints Row. They could have ended on. I don't think it was right to end. Not surprising that Keighley ended on Death Stranding, but yeah, I think if you're a fan of the game, then what they showed was really cool. But yeah, not the one to end on.
Sure, I mean, okay, I'm biased, but surely the biggest news of the show was the Halo launch date. Surely, and the consoles exclusive. Am I wrong?
Yeah, but would you end on that?
Yeah, I think if they had something to show, then
yeah. If they had gameplay footage, then absolutely. But perhaps with the lack of gameplay footage, that wasn't the thing to end on. But it seemed it was an odd thing to end on, wasn't it? And I saw your comments, Scott, saying, "Please don't end on Death Stranding," and then within minutes they were.
It was just always the later it went on. I was just like,
you knew.
The thing is like it was one of the things that they had announced ahead of time. Same with Saints Row, and I kind of think you don't end the show on something that know's already coming. But I think one thing that this show lacked, that maybe, say for example, the Game Awards didn't, is kind of like that big thing. Elden Ring was at it was the Game Awards, wasn't it? Yeah, was it the Game Awards? Was it that long ago? When Keighley had the big.
No, it was Summer Games Fest.
Summer Game Fest, yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Apologies, I was thinking it wasn't that far back. Elden Ring was huge for that, and I think this show lacked that. And I think if it had Death Stranding in the middle and then something of that nature at the end, then it would have been a kind of a much better show overall.
Yeah, no, fair point. Jadzilla, what was the standouts for you? Anything different from what Luke said?
Well, yes and no, I guess. I mean, as far as the content that we got across the week, I thought there was some amazing stuff. If someone would have explained what Dokev or Dokevu or whatever you say it, if they'd explained that game to me and said, "Hey, there's a hot new game coming out, you're going to be interested in this," I'd have just laughed and moved on. But seeing it was one of the massive standouts for me. The Xbox show, there was some there was some great content there. If you put aside the format of the show, we had the Dying Light opening up the show. We had got 11 indies coming into Game Pass. Again, this value of Game Pass into the pit looked amazing. Midnight Fight Express, these are coming straight to Game Pass. So brilliant. I was a bit disappointed we didn't see more of the Gunk. I was really looking forward to that. And of course, Forza 5 just knocked it out of the park. Opening Night Live was brilliant. Over 40 games in that one. And that was a 90-minute show. Again, so many just awesome stuff. If you think how well we're doing as gamers, just look at some of the lineup of some of these games, So Replaced is another amazing game. Death Stranding I've played, but I can make jokes about that just to annoy certain people. But it was really good. I think the pacing of that again was good. Keighley did a really good job. The weird thing about that was the awards for games that aren't out yet, which I believe they showed some footage behind the scenes. So they did actually show a panel, some Halo footage apparently. That's what I read anyway. So that's interesting that we didn't see it, but the panel did, and I guess that's for Game of the Year as well, eligibility. So yeah, there was tons of really good stuff, and Midnight Suns, as mentioned already, that looked really cool. Really interested in that. And Forza 5. I can't wait for that game. It looks absolutely fantastic. So overall, I'm very happy with it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And like you said, there was a few surprises in the show that we were doing. But there were some games that we were expecting, and they, like you say, they looked fantastic. Luke, Pucks, let's come to you next. Any other standouts for you in particular?
Nothing different than what's already been said, if I'm perfectly honest. I'll say my big ones that I kind of really like the look of, being I think what Luke mentioned, Cult of the Lamb looks really cool. And this Doka V, whatever it's very well pronounced, that looks really cool.
Doka V.
I think it was quite good actually seeing some updates on the Gunk. It was nice to see that we got a release date for that in December. And we're quite looking forward to seeing that one. Apart from that, I don't think there's actually one thing I did like, which I know a lot of people are going to hate me for, but I actually quite enjoy. Bear in mind, I didn't actually watch this live. I wasn't around to watch any of the Gamescom shows live. I caught up with any and all trailers just from kind of direct YouTube availability rather than going through the show and skipping forward. But one of the first things I did actually watch was the one of the levels for Vanguard, Call of Duty Vanguard, the Stalingrad level, I think it was called. And I hear a lot of people weren't really too fussed of it, but when I watched it, I was actually quite well impressed of it because there's no real difference in terms of the typical Call of Duty story beats. I think what I do like is the fact that it's going back to World War II and it looks like it's doing it very well. Is kind of how I took it, and it has those typical, action sequences of climbing up bricks on a building and sliding down and buildings falling over and all kind of over the top dramatized set pieces, but all of which I actually thought kind of fell together really well, and I actually really liked it. And I didn't touch Cold War as an example. I wasn't really that enamored with it or bothered to even pick it up after Modern Warfare. I mean, I loved Modern Warfare, but something about Cold War just didn't appeal to me. But this one is really, I think, potentially going to sucker me back into playing a bit of Call of Duty again. So I was actually quite happy to see the single player, to be perfectly honest.
It's interesting because obviously we've got that as topic 3, Call of Duty. But for me personally, and again, I quite like Call of Duty, it was a low point of the show for me, strangely enough. It just seemed very out of place. I think perhaps if you was to watch it in isolation, it would be slightly different. But just I was just confused as to why it was there. It just doesn't seem like Gamescom needs Call of Duty there, just like, Fortnite wasn't there and some of the other, Apex wasn't there. Do you know what I mean? It just kind of feels like it's a thing in its own right and that it probably shouldn't have been at Gamescom personally. But like I say, I'm saying that as someone, I wouldn't call myself a Halo fan. And like I say, we'll come on to that. But I do play, not Halo, sorry, Call of Duty. And like I said, we'll come on to that in topic 3, perhaps. But Scott, what was your highlights and lowlights? It was a little bit strange, wasn't it? Do you think the Xbox showcase needed to happen, or do you think we could have perhaps skipped that and sort of not been any worse off for it?
Yeah, I think on the Xbox showcase point of view, I think there was a lot of criticism directed towards it. I think a little bit unnecessarily. From my perspective, I think they set expectations really well. It was pretty much identical in format to the Xbox E3 extended showcase that was hosted by Paris Lilly. This was obviously again hosted by Paris and Kate. And it was more or less the same. It was slow. It had interviews with developers. Trebuchets, maybe too much.
Yeah.
Personally, I wouldn't necessarily say I really enjoyed the show, but I wasn't maybe as negative towards it as others, simply because I kind of had my expectations in check, and also because they ended it with Forza Horizon 5, which genuinely looks stunning. That final race, the final bit on Forza, which I believe is kind of the opening race for Horizon 5, just looks ridiculous. Those opening I don't really know what to describe them, where you're switching cars and you're going through the different environments. They're just stunning. They're absolutely
car
ridiculous.
porn.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it was a great way to end. The timing of having that showcase and not acknowledging Halo or Opening Night Live and then showing Halo just the very next day still baffles me a little bit. I can understand why it showed up at Opening Night Live, because there will be more people watching that than there would have been watching the Xbox showcase, but just completely have zero mention of it. Not even like tune in tomorrow to see something to do with Halo.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little bit bizarre, but Forza Horizon 5 definitely a highlight. From Opening Night Live, personally, there wasn't an awful lot. Midnight Suns was probably one of the standout things from my perspective. Obviously, getting Halo Infinite's release date, even with or without any, I guess I really enjoyed the cinematic trailer that they showed off. I really like Halo cinematics. I was always going to like whatever that was. I like how there's kind of more lore involved in the multiplayer now. From a low-light perspective, I guess, Luke, just to go against what you said, mate, Death Stranding, I think they made that game look even more boring than I thought it already was. They kind of took the walking out of the walking
Wow.
simulator by giving you someone that'll walk for you, which was
You can do
one of the
tricks
fun-
on a bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's also the bike and the catapult, so surely that makes it more exciting.
I guess, I guess so. But yeah, from my perspective, seeing more Death Stranding again, which I have zero interest. And I know that obviously I'm speaking personally here, but ending with Death Stranding, such a big demo of a game that's already been out for however long, and you just get a little bit of an update was a little bit of a letdown. This Keighley Kojima thing is truly baffling to me. Like, I want this sort of Keighley Kojima loving to just end. I want Kojima to break up with Keighley. I want him to tell him that it's not him, it's him. It's not Keighley, it's Kojima. But I don't see why Kojima has to show up at pretty much every bloody thing that Keighley does. I'm getting sick of seeing Kojima things, if I'm being completely honest. So that was probably the low. Like, things like Saints Row don't do really much for me. And I think it was Judgezilla, I think you mentioned it, mate. The awards were just truly bizarre and that's putting it politely. It's like the winner of the best PlayStation game was
what was that?
Elden Ring, despite the fact Elden Ring wasn't at the show.
It's multi-plat.
There was two. What was it? Also, the Nintendo award was 2 Ubisoft games.
Yeah, it was Rabbids and Just Dance, I think.
Yeah, truly bizarre. But again, it's a Keighley thing. Every show that Keighley has, he's got to have an awards thing. I think that's really just to tie it in as much as possible to the Game Awards.
So they were kind of crowbarred in, though, weren't they? That's
they always are. Even the Game Awards, they crowbarred in Flap. Like,
that's true. Good point.
The pre-show of the Game Awards has awards because nobody cares about those awards, because it's like best esports person, and nobody cares who the best esports person is. They care about, is Elden Ring going to be there? Is Hellblade going to be there? They don't give a shite who wins best, voice actor for whatever game, obviously I'm sure the voice actors do, and it's obviously great to be recognized, but that's not why people are tuning in. So yeah, everything he does has to have those sort of shoehorned in, and it's a little tedious to say the least, I think.
Yeah, it's a bit peculiar, isn't it? And like you say, we didn't get a cameo. We were talking about a weird cameo that he tends to do. We've had Doc Brown. We had, who was
Jeff
the other
Goldblum.
guy? We had Jeff Goldblum, just doing some weird stuff, but we didn't have any of that this time, thankfully. So
there must be something weird though. I can't remember. There must have been something weird in the show.
I think the Death Stranding thing was quite weird, but there we go.
I guess.
I don't think so. I don't think they had any particular cringe.
I thought the Horizon Forbidden West showing up was weird. Because
I thought that segment was a little weird.
Yeah,
I don't know why they
showed up to announce a delay.
Yeah, I don't know.
They were very excited to announce the delay, which was strangely worded. Like, that's something that really should have been on PlayStation blog. But I think that was just maybe Sony throwing Keighley a bit of a bone, maybe.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it was. I think overall it's pretty good. Definitely worth having and stuff. And like you say, we got some release dates out on certain games, and I think my Doke V really surprised me. What was the other one? Into the Pit. Really liked Into the Pit.
Yeah,
obviously,
that looked cool.
Forza Horizon. I quite like the look of Madison as well. It's going to be either a really good game or a really crap game, to be honest. I quite like the survival horror type thing. That looks quite creepy.
Flap.
Oh, imagine. God. Yeah, that's shit your pants territory, that is.
Exactly.
So, they were kind of my highlights. And the low lights, just like you say, perhaps the pacing of the Xbox show was just a little bit peculiar. I know, I'm a flight sim fan, but we're getting into the real nerdy stuff now with some of the Junkers planes and all of that sort of stuff. I can't imagine there's many people that are really tripping over themselves to be excited about that kind of thing. If I'm honest, but perhaps I'm wrong. I don't know, happy to be wrong, but okay. Well, thank you very much, chat. Thank you very much. We got some guests from overseas, Australia, by the looks of things. So Welcome along, Papa Woody. Great to see you. I know we contacted each other via Twitter a long time ago, and I know it was going to be a bit of a struggle tuning in, but thanks for being here, my friend. So let's move on to the last and final topic, and it's going to be quite a divisive one, I think. This is to do with Call of Duty, and I think Pucks has already kind of shown his colours on this one. But in a week where Call of Duty has obviously launched on PlayStation, the Call of Duty Vanguard Alpha, like I say, a game type called Champion Hill. We did hopefully have some footage to show, but through some technical errors, we can't actually show that. Although we did live stream, Pucks and I, some gameplay of that. And I agree, it's kind of good, but there's lots of people that hate on Call of Duty. And I just thought we'd kind of delve into why that is really, and kind of scratch at the surface and to see what's happened with the Call of Duty world for people to not like it like they do. And, let's be honest, the elephant in the room situation, Activision aren't a particularly nice company to work for or to support by spending money with them, and for many reasons. They've got lots of shady business practices, and sadly enough, obviously the most recent one is to do with things like sexual harassment, and that's more to do with Activision Blizzard Studios, but obviously the overseeing company of Activision, they it sounds like they were certainly enablers in that situation, and for that reason alone, if people kind of boycott Activision games, and particularly Call of Duty, then, like I say, I take my hat off to you. You have my respect. But I think there's been a Call of Duty hate has been around for quite a long time, possibly outdating some of these other shady practices that Activision seem to delight in. So I'm just trying to get to the bottom of what's going on with Call of Duty and why people don't like it. And even, this is the irony, even the Call of Duty YouTubers, they make so much more money out of hating the game than they do kind of praising it, which is kind of crazy. They've made an industry out of hating a particular franchise. And they, those hate videos always seem to do really well. And I'm just a little bit confused. Now, perhaps come to you first, Scott, if that's fine. And I've got a couple of questions for you. A, have you ever been a Call of Duty player? And I guess I'm talking single and multiplayer. I'm more of a multiplayer person in general, although I do play the campaigns and stuff. I quite enjoy the big set pieces, and like Puck said, World War II is my probably go-to when it comes to that thing, because that's where the kind of franchise was born and came from. But so have you been a COD player? And if you have, why have you fallen off hard with it? Because I know you're not particularly a fan.
Yeah, so once upon a time, Flap, the last Call of Duty game that I played, I guess I put a lot of time into, was Modern Warfare 2, I believe.
Okay, yep.
So when was that? That was like 2012, was it? Maybe a little later, or maybe a little earlier. To be fair, either way, it was it was a long time ago. So that was the last time that I put some significant time in the Call of Duty. But I did play that a lot. I really enjoyed it. Mainly multiplayer. I don't think I played a singles campaign of Call of Duty, if I'm being completely honest with you. But that was the one that really grabbed me, and I think the reason why I've jumped off it, I think it's fairly straightforward from my perspective, Flap. In my honest opinion, Halo and Battlefield are better shooters, and in which case I don't really have room for Call of Duty in sort of my games library. Really, I'd rather play Battlefield than I would Call of Duty, and I'd rather play Halo. So from that perspective, Call of Duty really doesn't get much of a look in, to be perfectly honest.
So is it the fact that it's kind of an arcade shooter more than anything else that's kind of one of the issues then?
I guess so. I think just from a gameplay perspective, I think it out of the three, it is kind of like I don't want to say worst, because that makes it sound bad. I want to say bad, but to me, it's kind of the least satisfying to play in terms of the gunplay and things like that. I also think, I remember playing things like, was it Rust? Back in the day on Modern Warfare 2, where it was just like this tiny little bloody map, and you just got killed every 4 seconds or something, and things like that. And it just wasn't particularly enjoyable. And then I think this ties into maybe the overall question about maybe why Call of Duty gets hit. I think it just comes down to popularity, because it's so bloody popular. It's kind of, I kind of not me personally, but I think the way that the maybe the I guess hardcore gaming community look at Call of Duty is I think people put it alongside things like FIFA. It's kind of like it's the and I'm doing sort of air quotations here. It's kind of the casuals game, if that makes sense. People buy Call of Duty every year, and that's all they buy. People buy FIFA every year, and that's all they play. I think it's kind of because it's so bloody big. It's in that sort of FIFA, Madden sort of territory. And I think because of that, what's cool to hate? It's cool to hate the popular thing.
It's kind of a victim of its own popularity then.
Yeah, definitely. Because, a lot of people will criticize it, and I think rightly so. But, I think it was just revealed in this past couple of weeks that pretty much not pretty much, I believe every Activision studio now is now working on Call of Duty. And I think that a lot of it comes from that as well, because you see these talented teams like Toys for Bob or teams like that are now who were working on different types of games now just being absorbed into the COD machine. And because it's an annual franchise as well, I think it's easy for people to get burnt out, even though the game's obviously developed by different studios, and even though they are different from title to title, I think it's very easy just to get burnt out on the next Call of Duty. Something like a Halo or a Battlefield comes along a little less frequently, so it's a little bit more of a thing when it launches, at least speaking personally. So yeah, it's an interesting one, because just to touch on something Puck said earlier, I actually thought the Call of Duty segment in Gamescom, albeit I thought it was a little too long, I actually thought it looked pretty good. I thought graphically it looked good. The way that they were telling the story of I can't remember her name, apologies, the character that Laura Bailey is playing was
the Russian sniper.
Yeah, although if I'm being completely honest, the cynic in me tells me that they wheeled out a female voice actor and showed a segment of a female character in their game for maybe slightly obvious and cynical reasons. So I don't want to put too much on that. But I thought overall what they showed, just purely from a game perspective, actually looked quite good. So now if I was to get into COD, I would probably play from a campaign perspective, because I'll be interested to see how they take on World War II. But from a multiplayer perspective, I've still got zero interest. Later this year, we're going to have Battlefield 2042. We're going to have Halo Infinite, and Call of Duty is not even going to be on my radar from that perspective. And then final point, just to wrap it up, is I'm sick to death of World War II and World War One and things like that. I don't want them to go back there, and that's why I'm so excited for 2042, because it's, I guess, set in the near future. But one of the reasons I didn't particularly like Battlefield 1 and V compared to 3 and 4, which are two of my favorite multiplayer games of all time, is because they went back. And I prefer that more modern setting. So them going back in time from a multiplayer perspective doesn't really do anything for me personally.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's not quite the take I thought you might have had, to be honest. But I'm interested to hear Luke's take. Well, I don't really know, to be honest. I think it was perhaps more to do with... yeah, that's a good question. I don't really know, to be honest. I didn't know you'd kind of played COD in the past, really. And that, like you say, I had in my mind that it was probably a victim of its own sort of popularity in lots of ways. And like I say, if you do take out all of the shady, bloody practices that Activision do tend to spread over their games, things like loot boxes and stuff like that, then you are left with just basically the core gameplay and stuff. And no, I thought perhaps you might have been more of a multiplayer Call of Duty player in the past and stuff, and just, like you say, perhaps got burnt out. And then obviously at that point, all of the shady business practices do tend to come in around Black Ops 3, that kind of time. But no, it's interesting. Well, let's come to Luke next, because I think you're going to probably have quite a strong opinion as well. What same questions to you, really? Have you ever been a Call of Duty player, and what turned you off if you were?
Yeah, I mean, well, so I used to be a Call of Duty player, but I say that in a very linear sense, because I've only ever really played Call of Duty for the campaign, not the multiplayer.
Okay. Right.
Which is probably a very low proportion of the player base, especially nowadays. So the first Call of Duty I played was actually was 2 on the 360 back when it launched, and I loved that game. And I kind of played, I guess, every other one up until one of the Black Ops. I can't remember which one it was now.
Okay.
And it's really hard. So, I mean, for me, the multiplayer, I've always hated the multiplayer. I've always absolutely despised it, because it feels very Twitch, and I don't particularly like Twitch shooters anyway. And I think the problem with Call of Duty that I found is that, well, it's not a problem of the game per se, it's more a preference. I really like games that encourage team play, and I don't feel like Call of Duty does that at all. You can pretty much, you can, at least in the old, the kind of traditional modes, you can mop up by yourself pretty easily, and it feels like a game where you only need one player to be absolutely superb on your team and you can win. Now, that might be different nowadays, but back then, that's how it felt. So
I think that's a very valid point and still accurate of today, to be honest.
Yeah, so I really don't like that, because I don't like games that, if I wanted to do that, I'd just play deathmatch all the time. But I like to play, team-based objective games, and that's why, stuff like, and I mean, Halo, you could mop up a little bit, but it was more about working as a team, and given that I grew up on stuff like Counter-Strike, which is all about teamwork, it's all about tactics. Call of Duty just never really grabbed me from a multiplayer sense, and never will while it's like that. I dabbled in Warzone a little bit just to try it out. It's cool. Again, it just suffers from the same issue. I think a lot of Scott's points are really valid as to why I stopped playing it, in a sense. The problem with Call of Duty became that it was super saturated. There's a game coming out every year. And, I mean, at least for me, the campaign doesn't justify buying the game on that, right? Because it's, 5-6 hours, and sometimes the effort is, particularly nowadays, is a bit low. The last Call of Duty I actually bought was the Modern Warfare reboot, and I enjoyed the campaign on that. Again, I didn't touch the multiplayer, didn't go near it, but yeah, it feels sort of endemic about all the worst things about AAA development now for me, which is the Activision just stifling the life out of every developer that it has apart from Blizzard to work on Call of Duty. A lot of the microtransaction stuff's not great, although it's not particularly unique in that respect. The focus has now become on multiplayer, which turns me off even more, right? Because, if they were constantly trying to put out a really good campaign as well, then I'd probably be more interested. Yeah, I think kind of all those things in tandem just don't do it. And I think the other thing is that when Call of Duty 2 launched, its campaign for the time was very blockbuster, and there weren't many developers doing that sort of thing. Now there are, right? There's a lot of developers that do fantastic single player campaigns in first person shooters, and even the ones that aren't amazing are pretty much as good as Call of Duty can do. So it's just become a point where there's nothing in that game anymore that really tempts me in. As I say, the last one I got was Modern Warfare because I had nostalgia for the original, and it was also I think it was the kind of revamp of their engine, if I recall, Modern Warfare, where kind of everything, it looked spectacular. It still does now, right? It still looks fantastic, and I really want to see that. So that's it. And to echo another Scott point, and I guess Battlefield's being guilty of this as well, but I'm so sick of World War shooters. They are appallingly boring now. There's too many. There's been too many. Call of Duty is probably more guilty than most. It's uninteresting. What else can you do in that setting? You can't. It's all the same. So and the Gamescom demo kind of reinforced that. Where it was just like, it looks like a Call of Duty campaign. but it's just I've seen this before. I've seen this a million times. It's new and it's shiny and it looks very nice, but it's just boring. So I think the hate that it gets is, I don't want to say it's justified, but it's easy to see why lots of people do not like Call of Duty, and equally why lots of people love it. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those games. So yeah, I don't sit here and I'm like, I absolutely hate Call of Duty. I think there's other franchises I hate more than Call of Duty, but I'm quite indifferent towards it now.
I think one thing that intrigues me, particularly to the multiplayer, is that there's the one thing that you said turns you off. Actually, is the Twitch aspect to it. I thrive on that. Now, one of the problems with Twitch shooters, and I think probably Call of Duty is the Twitch shooter, is that there's so many margins for error in that, as in latency. Even having things like your trigger locks and stuff. Literally the distance that you have to pull the trigger, can be the difference between getting that final bullet into someone that actually finishes them off before they finish you off, kind of thing. And and as many areas of sort of issues where that can be, it always comes back to the point of I could have done that better. For me, there always seems to be that element of I could have done something slightly better. So you go back and try again and again and again. And it's that aspect of it that I like, and you can burn yourself out on that, definitely. I mean, I do burn myself out on Call of Duties. I tend to play them hard for the first 3 months and then nothing for the next 9 months, if I'm completely honest, although Battle Pass does kind of entice you back in a little bit. But it's quite strange, isn't it, how it's exactly that actually buys me back into the game. But Jadzilla, you mentioned that you've played Call of Duty. Is that, are you a current player, would you say, or are you a kind of a previous player?
I'm a previous player, so my history with Call of Duty actually started back when I was playing Quake 3 Arena. I was playing in the leagues, and CoD came out, and we had a bunch of our best players defect over to CoD. So I had a raging hatred for it back in early
what CoD
2000s.
would that have been?
I think it might have been the first or second one. I'm pretty sure that it was a new thing that came out. That's why everyone was moving across to it.
Well, the first multiplayer CoD, I believe, was CoD 3, and that was a real shambles. CoD 4, Modern Warfare, was the first one that really kind of took the franchise.
It was 4. Four probably was. It was like the first massive multiplayer game, if I remember rightly.
They really fucked up CoD 3 because I think they did a Wii version where you could actually use the nunchucks to shoot and stuff, and I think that really put back development. They had a really lackluster multiplayer version of that. But it was CoD 4 that really took off, so I suspect it's that one.
So I mean, after that, and my hatred dissipated after everybody split up from Quake. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the Call of Duty 4. Yes, that's the one that gripped me. So as they first introduced, the perks and the strikes and things like that, and the
freaks,
kill chains, absolutely awesome. And I've played every single CoD since then up until Warzone a couple of years ago. So for CoD, I'm actually quite a big fan, but I can't remember who said it was the fan of the campaign. It might have been Luke. I'm not sure, Scott. But I'll just keep naming people till someone says that was me. But that's always been my thing. In Modern Warfare, I did play a lot of multiplayer, and I got really good at it. I mean, that was out in 2007. I happened to have a lot of time on my hands in 2007. And I think that's what stopped me now is the fact that unless you get in early, day one, and dedicate time, you're not going to be able to be up to the kind of, ability that all these people that spend all day on it are, to be honest. Why it's hated, it's an odd one for me. If you're a Call of Duty fan, they're not going to release a game you don't like. It's the same as Madden and FIFA. Every year we get a new roster and new shirts. The fundamentals are the same. We might get new techniques in FIFA where you need 15 fingers to actually be able to pull it off. But the fundamentals of the game are the same. But everybody loves it so much that they just cannot wait. Annual franchise, want a new one every year. So for Vanguard, for me, I'm pretty similar with what's been said previously. I thought it didn't show too well at the show, to be honest with you. But going back to World War II again, it's like, milking that again. And I think I said on the night, I'd just like to see them do something a little bit different. And I know they've gone back to the split stories and stuff like that. And there is a full campaign, which is really good. but yeah, it's not something I'm likely to get, I don't think. As has also been said, 6-hour, 7-hour campaigns. With Game Pass, the backlog's never been bigger. And these things are coming into the service, these big games. And this is a full price game, which you might play for 6-7 hours if you're not playing multiplayer. As far as whether you would purchase it or not, and obviously not to dwell on this too much, but I'm really conflicted with the stories that the developers have been coming out with, saying you're not helping by not buying it, you're not helping us. But I'm still massively conflicted with what Activision have done, Activision Blizzard. So I don't know if I'd even buy it, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's my potted history of Call of Duty, Flap.
And that's a really salient point. I know Puxley's got an opinion on that as well, because like you say, it's all very well not buying the game to punish Activision, but actually Sledgehammer Games and stuff. There's a lot of people that have put a lot of hard work, time and effort into this game. Is it fair on them? Interesting point. Pux, what's your take on that?
Something I thought about recently, actually. I've read some couple of articles earlier in the week and a bit last week as well. I think for the most part, we're all pretty much aware as to the whole Activision Blizzard saga that's currently going on. A lot of horrific stuff has come out as part of the state of California's, evidence chain and what's come out in the public, press and articles and stuff. And I think it's very justified when you look at it from that perspective solely that, definitely, I'm going to, boycott the studios, boycott all the games. They don't deserve my money. And I think to a large degree that is true. But I don't think, in hindsight, I guess, it doesn't. I don't think it necessarily paints the complete picture, because it's easy. I mean, focusing on Call of Duty as just a kind of FYI, I guess. But it's Activision Blizzard are the main outliers here in terms of them internally. Activision mainly acting as a publisher for the most part in recent years, but Call of Duty titles are technically developed off-site in different subsidiaries, whether that's Sledgehammer, Infinity Ward, or Treyarch. So, are you telling me that this behavior is rampant everywhere where Activision is publishing, or is it just internally of Activision Blizzard? I mean, nobody knows is the current answer to that, but I find it hard to believe that people would continue to keep working under such horrific conditions and put up with it, I guess. I mean, I appreciate there's a lot of instances where people are... I know there's a lot of working contracts in America which basically completely stifle you as the employee and benefit only the employer. I know there's a lot of mixed opinions on the American way of doing things from what I've read, at least. My minimal understanding of it. But I think to completely boycott all games under the banner, in a way, I can't but feel maybe also detracts from all of the kind of pain and effort and hard work that a lot of the, really good employees are put into a lot of these projects as well. And that's not just, I'm not just talking about, like white men in the industry that haven't come under fire. I'd like to believe there are plenty of, women and people of color, ethnic minority groups, whatever else, which do work in these other studios, which are actually having a whale of a time and loving what they do and have great passion for it. So I felt a bit mixed recently as to, yes, I don't want to support the bad practices. It needs to change. But you also feel very limited as one gamer that lives here, here in the UK at least. What impact can you really have by just saying, I'm not going to buy the game? Because there are so many people out there who don't give, just to be blunt, don't give two shits about working conditions for a company. They just want to play the end product. And
I'd argue that the vast majority of the casual Call of Duty and FIFA players and all, Fortnite, all of the big games, the vast majority of the casual players aren't even aware of the lawsuit that Activision have hanging over their heads.
That's a really good point, Flat.
And I think even if they did read about it, would they care and would it sway their mind? Probably not, because outside of gaming, this kind of behavior is arguably fairly rampant in other industries as well, like in a minority case, I guess, but this isn't just a gaming industry issue. This happens all over the shop, about women being mistreated, ethnic minorities not being given right promotions, the white male being given the main opportunities. It's not just a gaming issue. That is I'd argue, a very wide industry issue.
It's just a society. It's just a society.
Yeah, it's a societal
issue,
thing. Yeah, can you really change it? And it's not just down to the gaming industry to change it, because as I say, it's rampant everywhere. But I suppose as fans of the medium that have such a large passion for it, obviously we see it a lot. And is it like, are we completely powerless? Like, is there anything we can do? I mean, apart from relying on the whole state of an American, or a whole American state putting its foot down and saying we've got enough evidence here to actually seriously do some damage. But how much can they really do, and how much will it really change, and how do you change it? I don't think not buying a game is enough, personally. But
I think the gaming media are trying to do what they can. There's plenty of YouTube channels, and again, there's lots of people that hate Call of Duty. So any aspect of hating Call of Duty, including dragging Activision into the mix as well. Yeah, and I think Activision's biggest problem and enemy is public exposure, to be honest. And there's been some rumours recently that they're actually shredding evidence and stuff from HR that were salient towards the lawsuit, and then the lawsuit have actually picked up on that, are gunning for Activision for that practice as well. So, the more public knowledge out there, the better that is to a certain degree, because I think one of the things that has happened is obviously Call of Duty as an ESL sports league. And a lot of the big sponsors have started to pull out for various reasons. Obviously, they don't want their brand associated with a company that enables this kind of behaviour. And I think that's really where it hurts the most, to be honest, because, like I say, public-facing shaming, particularly in the light of other larger companies that don't want to be associated with Activision and stuff. And I thought it was actually quite funny that I think on the recent Call of Duty Vanguard trailers and stuff, the Activision logo doesn't even appear, which is quite a big deal when you think about it, because I think they're quite a vain company. Bobby Kotick at the very top, I think he likes the dollar, and I think he likes his name to be associated with the dollar. So for that to happen seems like a very severe PR stunt, let's call it, because I'm pretty sure that come next Call of Duty, the Activision logo will be back on the front of the box and everything like that. But I think public knowledge is the way forward. I take your point, Pucks. Do we as gamers, not buying it make a huge difference? Well, obviously, if you could in a huge quantity, it really would. But I personally think, like I say, that affecting the sponsorships and things like that's probably the way forward. But it's a very interesting topic. What's your take on sort of Vanguard and whether you're going to buy and invest a lot of time into that? Are you going to buy it? Are you considering it?
I suppose this is partly the thing, because when I did watch that trailer, I mean, I've been interested in Vanguard for a little while, ever since knowing it is returning to World War II. I appreciate what Scott and Luke are saying, and Judzilla, I think, as well, in that, yes, there's been a lot of World War II shooters down that they can appear boring, but having played the alpha, it very much feels, to me at least, like the rebooted Modern Warfare gunplay, but just set in World War II, in a World War II setting, which, at least from a gameplay feel, from my limited experience with the newest one, I don't feel we've had anything like this in terms of how it feels for an awfully long time. Yes, there's been a lot of World War II or World War I based shooters out there, but the Call of Duty, like the modern Call of Duty gunplay mixed in that environment, hasn't been done, I'd say, to this level of magnitude from what I can remember. And that's what I'm really looking forward to, and that's what's really sucking me in. And actually, the story trailers that we're seeing, or the campaign trailers, that we've watched at Gamescom and stuff, it really sucking me in. I thought it looked really good. Having played the alpha, I'm really looking forward to the full release. And in the back of my mind, I'm sitting there thinking, well, but I don't want to support that either. But is it wrong for me to say I like this game because the trolls of the internet are going to call me out for it otherwise, It's a weird one, but I am looking forward to buying it. I would like to think I would buy it. And I say that because the only thing that would stop me from buying it is all of the other great things which are coming to Game Pass. Like Halo Infinite and Forza and all sorts of other ones coming out. I know I'm going to... Exactly. I know I'm going to have my hands full with those. So even if I know I want to play it near to launch, I don't think I will, just because I don't have enough time. And when I've got a load of games which I can play for free, quote unquote, via Game Pass, then I've got no immediate reason to throw down 70 quid for a Call of Duty game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. One thing I've always thought with the problem with Call of Duty is it's never really had a serious competitor in a very similar market. I know that they always pitch Battlefield against it, but they're different kinds of shooters. And I just think you need that Twitch arcade shooter to really keep Activision on its toes and try harder, basically. Yeah, well, that's
There
interesting.
There was a game called Titanfall, Flap, that was far better than any Call of Duty that's ever been released, and yet, yeah.
See, that's interesting you say that, because that was in the days of the sort of exo suit. A Call of Duty where you could do the sort of double and triple jump and stuff like that, and they were probably my least favourite Call of Duties. And it's quite strange that obviously Call of Duty and Titanfall were around at a similar era, doing similar things, and that Call of Duty have now kind of gone back to the boots on the ground side of things. But yeah, and to be honest, that was EA's kind of attempt at probably tapping into that market, but they never really pushed it through. I mean, it's a shame, isn't it? Because, like you say, I think Call of Duty could really do with a competitor. And was Titanfall that game? I don't know. Did you think it was?
It could have been. I think both Titanfall 1 and 2 are both better than sort of any Call of Duty I've personally played from a multiplayer perspective. Titanfall 2's campaign, it was fantastic. One of the best first-person shooter campaigns I think ever. I just don't. It wasn't called Call of Duty, unfortunately, and it was. I know Respawn ultimately made the decision, I believe, to release it between Titanfall 2. That was to release it between Call of Duty that year and Battlefield, which was a silly decision, I think, in hindsight. Whoever made that one, I think ultimately that sort of was the end of Titanfall, and then that spawned Apex Legends in the end. So I do think there was genuinely a game that was better in that Twitch shooter arena in Titanfall, but for just whatever reason it just didn't click in the same way Call of Duty did. And I think that's simply because Call of Duty is too big. I think it is one of those things where I don't think it can be toppled because it's just that big, it's that popular. I don't think anything will come along from a Twitch perspective that will necessarily beat it in the console space.
See, the weird thing is, I think one of the biggest problems for Call of Duty is also one of its saviors, and that is the fact that it gets launched annually. Because you know that if you hate this year's Call of Duty, you're going to have another one come along next year that's you're probably going to like, or it's going to at least be different. And that could be its downside, obviously, because how much time and effort can they actually put in annually? And like you say, they're working several studios to the bone. And let's face it, how often does a Call of Duty game get delayed? It almost can't, because of Activision's kind of overall control and chasing the buck. And even to the point where Black Ops 4, there was lots of rumours that Black Ops 4 wasn't going to come out that year. And what they did is they just dropped their campaign for that year. So it was literally just multiplayer with a kind of a precursor to Warzone. They had Blackout, which was a battle royale. So even in a year where the campaign suffered, they still went ahead and launched, and people lapped it up. Still, it's the franchise that seems to not be able to fail in lots of ways. But very interesting. Well, thank you very much, panel. Thank you very much, chat. That kind of wraps up the show for tonight. Is there any last comments before we close the show, Pucks?
I've got a few things here, actually. One comment here from Pyro M, who says, the only Activision COD game I've ever played was Black Ops 2 with my brother. Otherwise, I've never liked the series, as it leans more on glorifying certain aspects of war that I don't gel with. Matiko, last COD game that I played was World War II, so maybe now is a good time for me to jump into the new one.
I liked World War II.
Oh, I hated it. I did play a tiny bit of that. I think my friend had it. I really disliked it. That's the multiplayer just didn't feel good to me.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The campaign I thought was fantastic, though. I really enjoyed the World War II campaign.
Yeah, I did.
Another one from Papa Woody, who says, something that intrigues me is, for movies, Vietnam is sort of the default go-to, but with gaming, it's World War II. Just a thought. And follows up again with saying, yes, started it, and it ended up in the backlog. Don't know why, because it was good. I have it on the X to give it another hit, but the backlog is growing.
Yeah, there's been lots of talk about Call of Duty Vietnam, Call of Duties and stuff, isn't there? There's been a couple of dabbles with that, but
I think Black Ops 1 kind of have a little bit to do with the Vietnam War, but didn't really touch on it in great detail. It just kind of it was a weird time traveling mechanic.
It was a sideline. It was a sideline,
And that's it for comments.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, chat. 3 topics tonight. We've kind of done these extensively. Hopefully, I will be putting timestamps on tonight's show. I have made a note of those. Hopefully, you've enjoyed the show. Like I say, it was a week where we had Gamescom, so we had some more news, and obviously with the Halo launch date and things around that, it's always good to have some news to talk about rather than have to sort of scramble around trying to find some stuff. But thank you very much, panel. We've had the GPG Crew, Scott Puxley, Luke, thank you very much. Judzilla, thank you for being a guest on the show. First time to the show. I know you host your own YouTube channel. Where can we find you? And tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, really appreciate the invite. It's been awesome talking with you guys. And chat's been on fire again as usual. A very educated crowd you've got. So really enjoyed it. You can find me on Twitter or Judzilla UK. And my YouTube channel is linked off the profile. So I do all brand new music basically. I do a lot of music for creators as well if they want to use it for YouTube or projects and stuff like that, copyright free. And I do some music for games that inspire me as well. So I've done Hellblade and Cyberpunk, Gears, and I'm working on Halo now. Yes.
Yeah, nice. So, when will that be available?
Oh, I mean, I'm starting to feel like 343 Industries at the moment. It's going to be a couple of weeks. I just should be starting on the video tomorrow. Hopefully, most of the music's tracked. It's not mixed yet, but it's all down. So I'm going to start on the video while I get into the mastering and mixing art, which is one of the most difficult bits, to be honest with you. So hopefully, a couple of weeks. Go check it out and see what you think. Let me know.
Fantastic. Yes. Well, we'll keep our eye open on Twitter for that, and we'll help share the spread the love and the news. Everyone in the chat, definitely check out Judzilla's YouTube channel. Fantastic. Thank you very much for being here, everyone. We've had a great time as always. Like I say, it's a Bank Holiday Monday tomorrow, so no work for the majority of people in the UK. So that's kind of cool. And thank you very much for being here, chat. You've been fantastic as always. Please like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you on the next show. See you later.